Good evening, LinkedIn friends. Welcome to another edition of Singularity Soothsayers with Nico, Erin, and myself tonight. Special Tuesday night edition because we are so excited to have Erin present some slides to us, if you can imagine that. How are we doing tonight?
It's very much my safety blanket, so I don't just go completely off the rails and start talking in circles. But yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I'm super excited to talk about this app I've been building. In the description that I put just a second ago, this is a true fact. This is the only app that I've ever built that my wife actually wants to use too. So I built in a way for her to have her own user and segment it in the database. So so already getting more brownie points than I expected off of this, but she mostly just wants me to go talk to somebody other than her about it. So I'm very excited that y'all are letting me do that.
Hey, we do our best here. How you doing, Nico?
Doing well, and extremely excited to take a look at this. We got a little sneak peek at it like earlier last week and a little bit later last week, and yeah, very excited to see the full on presentation and have Erin explain this to you guys, because I think you're gonna lose it when you see how awesome this is.
Yeah, so whenever you're ready, Erin,
for sure,
get it added to the stage.
For sure. I will also preface this with a lot of this is probably overkill for a lot of use cases. And I fully recognize that the problem that I was having was when I was getting to larger data sets. Are y'all seeing this screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Sweet. Not share.
I like the color adjustment already.
Thank you. So I was uploading really big documents and asking really specific questions, and I just wasn't super happy with any of the responses I was getting. And I tried a lot of different agentic methods to arrive at this. So we'll look a little bit at the full tech stack here. But yeah, so agentic RAG is just kind of the next evolution of retrieval augmented generation, where it's going to improve response accuracy, reduce hallucinations, give the agent a way to kind of intelligently respond and kind of adapt to the different types of information that it needs to grab. So I have built this interface that I'm calling Docusaurus, which is a smart document repository that allows for agentic chat with the documents that you upload. So as we've seen today with Google Drive now seamlessly integrating with Claude, it definitely eats into a little bit of this functionality already because such is life in the days of AI. But we'll still jump into it because I think it's still valuable to be able to see kind of what's possible and kind of what goes into a response that's actually really intelligent and be able to cite its sources and things like that. So the back end of this is built with N8N, and I Googled it. That is N8N is how you're supposed to say that. And I mostly went with this because I was requiring so many steps that using something like LangChain or Crew AI or kind of any of those Python backends, there just wasn't enough visibility into what was going on at each step. And it was just kind of a nightmare to debug, especially since I'm not super great at Python. It was very much a struggle. So N8N also has a ton of really awesome built-in functionality that I want to show y'all as we go through this. Functionality for agents, I really like how it coordinates memory. I really like how it enforces response schemas and gives you the ability to easily retry if they mess something up, so you don't blow up your whole workflow because one response got it wrong. But we'll look at some of those kind of built-in tools, and then anything that I built outside of N8N, I just put in a Lambda function, mostly so it could be like its own discrete little piece that I'm just calling via the API endpoint. And then I write everything in Node.js. So if anybody is interested in any of this code, I will send it to you. Just holler at me any of these functions that might be useful to you. The front end is React and Tailwind, just the easiest frameworks to spin stuff up on. I also find that it's the code that AI works with the easiest, it seems. Like it really understands like the different components and stuff. So that makes things much easier. And then all of the AI that I use to get to this point. So Tempo Labs is what I always use for prototyping. I just really, really like the output and all the different kind of user stories that it generates just off your one prompt. We'll look a little bit at Windsurf. It is my favorite. I'm calling it agentic pair programming is what I'm calling it, because that's what I feel like. I feel like I just have like a little junior developer that works with me who's just like a real go-getter and sometimes goes off the rails, and I have to like rein him back in and be like, no, we're not doing that. We're not changing code that I didn't tell you to change, things like that.
But it would be so cool.
Right. Right. But I want to blow up that thing that you didn't even tell me to look at. And then OpenAI for most of the stuff within my workflows, and then Claude for generating any of the code. And then Zep for agent memory. It's kind of the state of the art, and it plugs in really well with N8N. So we'll take a look at that as well. But the whole thing is there's basically just two workflows that I have. So there's an upload processor that you give it a PDF upload, and it slices and dices it so that it's easy for the agent to remember it in the future, stores that in a long-term vector storage embed, and then allows you to query it with our second workflow, which is the query handler. And we'll look at some of the like more complex pieces here. So let me start by jumping into, we'll just jump into the interface here. So this is my app interface here. So I'm just going to authorize Google Drive. And so essentially what you just do is upload a document here, rather than doing that and having it take forever. I'm going to just pull up document processor and we can look at all the steps to it, because there's a lot of steps. And the other piece that I will go ahead and just own up to is this is very slow. So it's not the exact user experience you would have if you were doing this in like Claude or something like that. So I definitely think the trade-offs here, like for most use cases, something like Claude is much better than like going through all the effort that I went through to put all this together. Like I fully recognize that, but it was fun to do. And I do think that the kind of principles of how it works apply to a lot of agentic systems when you're talking about like trying to store in like short-term versus long-term memory, and like how that vector storage actually works.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I was going to say is that even though this functionality may come to pass with a lot of other systems, the thing is, when you guys are going to do, and I definitely want you to touch on this a little bit, because we know, because like we're fresh on the context, and I think some people who are kind of up there with building out agents and stuff definitely understand the context, but the purpose, right? So like this, what's the end result, right? Like why is somebody going through this purpose?
Yeah, so My goal with building this out was mostly for me because I do a lot of documentation, and I wanted to be able to have
One button
intelligent
press.
chats with that, and I wanted to be able to chat with specific documents. And that's one thing that I haven't, like, unless you upload like one specific document to, your project or your chat itself, there's not really a good way to just like say, of all the documents you have access to, I only want you to answer based on this one. So that was kind of the original thing I was trying to solve for. And so this interface gives you a way to upload those documents and then select them here. And then the document IDs are stored in the long-term storage so that I can easily filter by each document. And it just makes it easy to have those conversations either zoomed way out where like no documents are selected and it's going to reference your entire database, or zooming way in on like one specific document.
Yeah, I love the idea of, and that's the thing is, even though I haven't seen it, it's the case where I haven't seen this functionality that much in terms of actually I don't know if I've come across it yet. Just the ability to like fine tune as you go, right? So you have like a whole plethora of stuff that you're talking to per se, and then as you're talking to it, you can kind of zero in on the docs, like you say, that you actually need to focus on and let go of the stuff that you don't need to. It's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. And then my wife wants to use it. She's a physical therapist. And so she wants to be able to use it so that she can reference like specific studies. Like if she wants to like look back through just her notes for something rather than like her documentation. So that's kind of how I've been setting it up for both of us, where I added these settings here. So I can tell it like our job roles, and then give it some preferences like the output style and the custom instructions. So I'll show you where in the workflow that kind of gets added in. But there's a lot of ways that you can make this still worth the time and effort to have put into it. Like you can definitely customize it. One of the things that I'm looking at right now, I have evaluator agents, but I really want to have trainer agents as well, where I'm basically storing all of my prompts in a database that the trainer has access to edit, so that if the trainer hears from the evaluator agent that, most of this output hasn't been good for the last few iterations, like it can go in and edit the prompt for that node itself so that it becomes a self-teaching cycle, if that makes sense. So like there's definitely things that I want to keep doing to like keep kind of staying ahead of the like, I'm sure Claude will come out with it next week, but like
no, that's the thing is like, I think what you're doing is a perfect example of what we've been talking about, which is like hit that niche and drive at it hardcore, right? Because we've been hinting at it. Claude has a similar functionality. If you guys know about Notebook LM, it has similar functionality. I say similar because those are giants and they just slop it out there, right? And it's like, hey, connectivity, see ya, right? And what you guys are looking at is that connectivity on steroids, fine-tuned, and like ready to even go further than that, right? So where Claude put this feature out and Google put this feature out, maybe Chat will probably put the feature out, they put it out and it's just kind of like, all right, cool, let's move on to the next thing, right? Like this is a platform that's going to quickly and constantly evolve, and all of the features that you're going to wish, or whatever want to be there are just, it's going to be like HubSpot. They're just going to, right. It's awesome. I think it's awesome.
So just to confirm what you just described, was if, could I do this manually with Claude, like updating the knowledge base docs or the custom instructions because things have changed, or like you said, the answers aren't where they need to be. So I ask, okay, how do we change your instructions so you stop doing this? And then it spits them out, and then I got to copy them and put them in. Like what you're describing is that just if Claude were able to just go and change the docs, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That would be amazing. I'm pretty sure I've had to do those things in almost every project that I've created, right? And then
Yeah,
it becomes
I'm really
because of
fascinated by this like self-sustaining system that like teaches itself to
yes.
and self-improves. Because then it can also improve me as it's improving itself. Like it can also like give me feedback about like, the types of resources I'm uploading or the types of notes I'm taking, like, depending on, where you wanted to go with it. Like this could definitely, like Nico was saying, like it can be fine tuned in a lot of different directions, because the base is kind of, even if the base is like easily accomplished with other platforms, it's like this as a base can be iterated on really easily, because the foundation is strong. So like everything that we do from here on out is just to make it just crazy, crazy dope.
And this is probably the only way like to solve my digital hoarding habits. Like,
Possibly.
'cause I have like 100 projects right now with all like obviously there's no document control across the projects. So it's like, what am I using the most updated? Yeah.
It's abuse.
Right.
That's
And no
project
no
abuse.
matter how
For
Claude
sure.
tries to be like version control for me, it's like, no, I'm sorry, bro, you can't do it. It's still on me at the end of the day to manage all these project docs.
Yeah, and I'll show you. I have some some very specific temporal metadata that I add, to this like document processor so that this can answer those kinds of questions and like determine which chunks of information are more recent or older, to be able to like put things in that order. Um,
So this is like actual perfect memory, like versus what we're hearing
I
about
mean,
these LLMs.
it's
We're closer here than what we're actually experiencing in the LLMs.
possibly,
I think what
possibly
you're actually pointing at is
a lot
like
of steps to it. And like I think once you see like, because most LLMs when you're uploading your documents and stuff, I mean it happens really quick and then it spits out an answer. This takes a minute, because it's gonna chunk all the data into, and this kind of is one of those things that I want to tweak and optimize for, because right now I use a token based smart chunking. So it shoots for 4,000 tokens, give or take like 500 overlap. And it's hierarchy sensitive, and it creates metadata as it goes. So what you end up with are these like chunks of content with some metadata already built in, and then you loop over those chunks to generate the vector embeddings. So I'll preface this with there are a lot of RAG systems using N8N, that don't do any of this and still work for the most part. like mine is like I uploaded a 90 something, like a 98 page document, and I wanted to be able to ask it like what does it specifically talk about in chapter 2 with these like 3 frameworks or whatever. So like I need it to know to look in that document, in that chapter, in that like for that content. And so the way that we accomplish that is by processing it in a way that we're giving it just tons of metadata on top of the vector, imprint. So most vectors just look like, they're just like numbers. Let me see if I can find any. Um, But a vector means nothing to like you or me to read it. And weirdly enough, aside from just like the vector matching, it really doesn't mean a whole lot to the AI either. So where all of your like really valuable information comes from is the metadata that you add to your vector. So basically, you're giving your long-term storage a way to quickly match with something that's relevant. And then you give it just a ton of data about why that could be relevant to the query. So that's kind of the goal behind the metadata, because what you're going to do is return those vectors. The vectors are kind of useless, but you do have access to all this metadata. Now that can be your context in your query itself. So we're getting a ton of metadata just from the chunk itself and from the tags and from the summary. But the semantic fingerprint is a concept that I came across that that I think really kind of takes this to the next level, where, and I just did this with plain just LLM calls within N8N, where I have specific prompts to generate information that's specific to like the temporal information. So like, when was this created or updated? What time period does it cover? So getting really specific into these like aspects of the content. So again, we've chunked our content and now we're just kind of slicing it in a bunch of different ways and trying to figure out like how to make that metadata as valuable as possible. Then I add this evaluator agent we talked a little bit about. So this guy has access to this ZEP memory. So like I said, super easy to hook up memories and different models with this. It also has an auto fixing output parser, which I really like. So this is requiring a JSON output that's actually like pretty complex because it's going to go directly into the Pinecone embed. Mm-hmm. So the evaluator agent is there to make sure that everything is going to work correctly when it goes into the embed. And then all of that kind of gets concatenated up here in this step. And then this gets saved into Supabase. So Supabase is my just regular database, and that's what I'm seeing in the UI itself. So all the tags and stuff here, those came from that workflow. So a ton goes into the upload process, but the end result is that you get a really solid query response. And I think this query response has gotten even more complicated today, but because every time I like look at it, I'm like, okay, I need to add like
but I could do this
here. Yeah, exactly. The main things that it does. So first it analyzes the query that comes in. And then if it needs to be broken down into subqueries, it outputs that as an array so that I can loop through those. And so once I get to this step, I'm either looping through just one query, or sometimes it'll have, I think I told it up to like 5 because I didn't want it to just think forever. So we come down here, build metadata filters for the Pinecone query. So that's utilizing all of the data that we saved on there to get a vector search completed. So that's going to return like the top 5 most relevant chunks. And each chunk is 4,000 tokens. So like those are pretty big chunks. It then enhances that context by just finding vectors related to the vectors it returned in the first place, and then re-ranks everything and compiles it so that for each query, it has the maximum amount of context. So I come in here and, I give it the query and say, here's all of the most relevant context. It also has like a system message, so it kind of knows that it's my responder agent, uses the memory. Each query has its own evaluator. And then at the end, I added this today, basically like a fail safe, like, did this actually answer the question? And if the answer is no, it tries another one. Otherwise, it finishes out the loop. And then, here's where the Supabase settings come in. So it's going to summarize all of the context. And then for those settings we had for like our jobs and like all of those, it just pulls that row out of Supabase and adds it to the response here, so that it knows all that information as well. And so then we have like a final response generator and an evaluator. So yeah, that's kind of the whole flow. And I'll show you, it does kind of take a second.
Yeah, but I mean, like what it amounts to, right, is I'm sure that a few people are used to using reasoning on some of the models. And what this amounts to is that on your data specifically, right? As opposed to it being like it having to go and reason with the knowledge of the rest of the world and then back onto your particular subject. It's like now this is, again, it's like this fine-tuned, laser-sighted method of actually speaking to your, or having the conversation with your data.
For sure. And like I said, it is very slow because there's a lot of steps. So like we can go look at our execution.
How does it decide whether it's answered the question or not?
So it's asking an LLM. Let's see.
It's asking itself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so it let's see. It has just a prompt where it's like, this is what the user asked. That's the try another query. So it's this one here. So I give it the query and the response. And then it's basically told to like put those into one of these two categories. And so then depending on which branch the output is on, that's how it like continues through the loop. So yeah, figured a category like because I kind of wanted like a true false, but this was the closest I could get to that.
So is it matching like metadata to determine a correct answer?
So what I was trying to solve for was if the answer didn't wasn't like if it was answering something like I don't have the context for that or something. So like if it returned basically if like a step up here returned 0 results and it had nothing to base it on, like it's a catch-all for that.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not also checking the vector store. I guess technically it could, because it could like just pull it in from there. I did hit the context window limits a couple of times when it was like a bunch of loops through this kind of system. But for the most part, and I've been using the 4.1 mini on most of these.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's worked really well. So yeah, really like this N8N. Like all of this is just done with webhooks. So like from my front end, it sends one, and then it actually has like a node that responds to it. So it makes it really easy to connect to whatever front end you're building. yeah, it's been fun to build and like fun to kind of like think through how to store all the different data points and like, you know, trying to think ahead kind of to like what Chris was saying about like, usually if I ask these type of questions, I don't get the type of response that I'm looking for. Like trying to find those kinds of problems to solve has been, you know, fun with this project.
Is the temporal stuff, is that like a lot of issues I've been having lately are Claude not being good at dates and time-based things. Is that solving for that?
This does, and you could probably do it a little more simply if you stored like date information as like a metadata key that you could compare, and then you just give your agent like a tool to calculate the difference between the times. And then it would be able to, and then you'd essentially need to add a step where it's like, of all of your context, like basically in this part here, like you would want to like re-rank the context by like temporal metadata or something, where you're trying to essentially rule out anything that there's like newer information or like, you know, a newer integration that came out or whatever. So yeah, I would probably just put that somewhere in here to make it a little more accurate on that front.
Okay. I'd love your take on why it's not good at that stuff. Because what's happening now, which obviously is super annoying, and I'm just curious as to why, like, you guys think it happens. And I can actually show an example from today, like the fact that it cannot effectively answer today.
What did the AI do to you, Chris?
Well, yeah, it gets the date wrong. That's what it's doing.
So it's because LLMs think in tokens and not literals. So it doesn't see an actual date. It sees a combination of tokens that can be different at every, like, depending on where it's coming from. So it's just not good at like if you explicitly give it a step to like reorder things by date, it can do a little bit better, I have found. Like if you give it like a mathematical, like reorder these by the timestamp or something, like it's a little bit better at doing that. But like to just think in term, like,
right,
it's a guy, it doesn't think in terms of time.
I get it when it's not given dates, like when I just say today or tomorrow or last week or this week, like, but in this case, it's like I say the date, you know, at the beginning of the show. It's within a project and it's note. And then like it hits me with April 16th. And like I was just like,
hey man,
what do I have to do?
Come on.
You're so close. Everything else is amazing.
Right.
Yeah. And it's just super interesting because I think it even yeah, like I didn't even ask it to fix, I didn't even highlight that as a problem. And then I'm like, can you give me a more complete version with LinkedIn posts? And then it's April 15th. Like, and it gets it right.
Right.
So that's where it's just been super interesting lately to see that kind of and we talked, I think last time, with about how it is making sense to me as I learn more about how like the calendar and how we think about time is super arbitrary and subjective. And so of course,
That's
if
true.
it's not ones and zeros,
Right.
it's going to have problems with it.
Time is like literally the worst thing in the world when it comes to like code. So I can only imagine that the poor like AI engineers who had to like train the models were probably like, I don't fucking know, guys. Time is time. Like your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the response that I always get from from Claude. I don't really have the deeper discussions with anybody else. But it makes perfect sense, right? Well, it makes perfect sense to me because time is meaningless to them, right? It is to us as well, right? Me and Chris were talking about the fact that it is. It's this like pretty like the only reason we have it as a construct is like just to again like explain happenings. It's not really anything that we know to be finite necessarily, right? So us telling the machine like, hey, it's July, it's like, what the hell is that? Like, what?
Right.
Who cares? Like, by comparison to what exactly?
Right.
Well, last month it was June. Why? Because it was 30 days ago,
Right.
and temperatures were different. So,
Right.
like none of that makes
Wake up, Claude. The moon is different.
I keep going back to Sherlock, where it's like, so what? So what if the Earth goes around the sun? Who cares? Like, what does that actually mean? What does it do? It doesn't do anything.
And it's things like that where it's like, okay, eventually AI is going to decide that time is not a thing, and nobody's going to care about it anymore.
I mean, we stopped caring about
away with time zones. Like that would, let's start there.
We're getting there.
Man, so big updates from Claude today too. After spending an entire weekend a couple weekends ago being all excited about setting up MCP and getting 95% of the way, and then not being able to let Claude see my Gmail and my Drive folders and my calendar, which was the most important thing that I wanted to see. I've never spent so much time in the Google admin area. Like instructions were there. Like Claude told me exactly how to do everything. And then the MCP just would not work. Downloading software I've never used before. It worked for HubSpot MCP, but then we couldn't get it going for the Google side. And so luckily, when today hits and it's just built in now to Claude, I have a sweet executive assistant project that's been waiting for this moment of just being able to see all the Google stuff. Unfortunately, the first key insight it gave me was that I did not get selected for my inbound talk, which might have been the best way to deliver that news to me, if I'm being honest.
Like, hey man, right out the gate, you didn't make it.
Right.
Just let you know.
Key updates rejected by inbound.
If it makes you feel any better, I don't even have access to the email account to know if I was rejected.
Oh wow. Oh my god.
If that makes you feel any better.
You got it.
That's okay.
Maybe they'll forward it to me. Forward me.
I'll earn my way. I'll earn my way in front of people at inbound.
100%.
But no, super cool in that I was just able to say like, all right, you're connected now, right? And he's like, yep, I can see this and this and this. And then that means we can do this and this and this. I was like, all right, recap my day. And then it asked a bunch of questions asking me to recap the day. And I was like, but you said you could see everything, right? He's like, oh yeah.
That's all I forgot.
Day, right? But,
I'm new to this functionality.
Yeah. So what, man, what should we do first with stuff like this?
I think is the way to go. Like, I definitely need to set something like that up for me.
What was that? The first thing you said?
The executive assistant thing. I need
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It's been, and
Executive
now
assistant,
it's
I
like a
think most
race
everybody.
to like use like a meeting links race. Like, let's use mine because then we're going to use Google Meet, and then I can turn on Gemini, and then Claude will be able to access it. It's
That's the thing is like, you know, and you guys know HubSpot has its meeting link transcriber now too, right? So like everybody's got a you know, this is we've been talking about this, right? Here's where you guys want to know where you're gonna make money. All like the all for ones, right? The trillions. So like if those of you guys that think like pretty much like we do, where you hate using like 8 services to do the same thing, develop the app that puts them all together, right? Or that consolidates them. And like, you know, somebody just create the app, Meetup, right? And it's one app that one person has that like everybody can sign into. Does not matter what whether you're on Teams, you can sign into it. Whether you're on Google, you can sign into it. Like, doesn't matter. It accepts all sign-ins. And well, I don't know, you can all have a meeting together, right? Like, that's where the money's at, because everybody else is too busy trying to develop their thing for their platform. The money is actually in consolidation of these like ecosystem things, right? All the big utility tools. So like all the note takers, all the meeting you know, assistants, all of the email assistants and all that kind of stuff. So like Claude doing this is definitely it's one way of like bringing, you know, the one ring to rule them all, right? Like they've really brought like, I don't know, that was my first reaction, was just like, wow, a lot of apps just died. Like a lot of, I just heard the crying of a lot of applications across the landscape, right? And I don't know, sort of so much the better, right? Like evolution is not supposed to be painless, and change is never easy. Right. So I think it's pretty awesome. But I think one of the greatest use cases that you could do, the personal assistant thing is super super attractive. Like especially if you have you know, like Chris or Erin, you guys are, you know, busy in your day to day, and you need that assistant to help you keep stuff like in check. It's not like I don't have one. I also have one. It's just not a Claude, it's a GPT. But now that Claude can plug in, a project that I was going to be working on with a custom GPT, I might just be able to shorthand with Claude now, which was, at least for my use case, and feel free to do the same, you guys, because I think this is, I don't know exactly what is going to come of it. It's definitely going to be the most interesting adventure I have ever embarked on since this technology has come out. A while back, I downloaded all of my Facebook history, and then like last week I downloaded all of my LinkedIn history, and now, you know, it's connected to all of my email, and it's connected to my drive. Not like everything in there. I've noticed that like when you play around with it, you kind of have to tell it like, hey, look at this stuff in this folder, but it can still go in and look at that information. So essentially, I think a little bit potentially further ahead, right, than an assistant is just like a clone, just like that digital clone, right? So like we were talking about how it can't really, the context is the missing thing, right? Like the fact that it's not been in your head along with you your whole life. So like there's a lot of missing context there, but at the same time, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So I've already got like folders in there of like, you know, abstract writing, you know, stuff related to work, stuff related to AI, stuff related to, you know, webinars, stuff related to like personal, obviously like Facebook and socials and things like that. And then just a photos folder. And then I have like an artwork folder. So it has like all of this context about who I am. And I know this is gonna, it might like really piss off a lot of people. I don't care. If you haven't done it yet, you should. My boss turned me on to it. It was coolest thing I've ever done. It's called a Berkman study, and it ain't cheap, but it's still very cool. And what it is, long and short, is essentially you take this questionnaire. It's about 130, 150 questions. And this thing nails down who you are, how you act, what you like, the way you like to talk to people, the way that you like to be spoken to, the way that you like to approach things, the way that you would prefer other people approach you with things, the way that you like to plan stuff out, and the way that other people plan stuff out, and how you should approach them about it. All of it. And I mean, so much so that it would scare you how accurate this thing is. And that's 150 questions. So I'm about to take the near entirety of my life. I'm about to take about half of my life in social posts and just over half of my life in photos and whatever else I can get my hands on, and throw that into a database. And I'm willing to bet that even without all the nitty gritty, it'll be able to stitch together enough of the in between. But that's the project I'm now launching into, because that's the one for me, is to be able to talk to like a seriously super intelligent version of myself that knows everything about me, that could just, my buddy.
I love it.
That's
Right.
the thing. Like, I'm listening to Scary Smart right now, and you just mentioned, I don't know, maybe it was the video you shared. I can't. The borrowing. Yeah, I think I wasn't watching the video.
Oh, right. Yeah, listening to it.
The borrowing of like the 40, 50 IQ points, like
Mhm.
every time he uses AI, Mogadot, and like, he mentioned specifically, like, if you've ever been around people when there's that kind of IQ difference. And I can definitely think of some times where it's like you're just around brilliant people. And not only like do you learn a lot if you're not busy being like overwhelmed by what's being said, but often it can, like, it raises up like how you think about stuff like in that moment. So is that where your platform comes in, Erin? Like, because I'm thinking like how Nico creates this database, or even like, let's say the Google Drive, that, like, because what came to mind is I have, like, as I was building all the Let's Build projects and just continually building projects, I started a Google Drive where there's folders for each project, and I was trying some semblance of document control. Like, at which point, or how would I know, or should I even try to ask Claude to give me like an assessment of all of my Claude projects as an example? Like, and if I said, like, give me some common themes, like, how would I know that it wasn't randomly leaving stuff out?
Yeah. And see, that's what I kept running into, and like why I built this other system. Because it's like when you upload stuff to, or like when you give Claude access to data, like, I guess I just don't know enough about how it's actually stored on their end to be able to tell you like when it finds a reference in its database that's relevant to your question, is it returning the entire context, or is it only returning a summary of that context? Like, it's hard to know how detailed the memory store itself is versus maybe it just has the ability to say like, okay, the user asked about this thing. I need to look for a document that'll probably be called something like this. And then, kind of like works its way logically to find things that it can reference like in real time. Yeah, I don't know enough about how these, the giants are doing things, because they have all the bandwidth in the world to get it done. So yeah, I would definitely be interested to know more. But I think, like, to accomplish, like, Nico, what you're saying, where it has the context of your entire life, like, it would need to process the data, not just have access to it.
Right.
And, like, I just don't know. Claude may do that. Like, I genuinely don't know. Like, I genuinely, if it
That's
does,
what I'm saying. Like,
it
this is
could
like,
very well next week. Like, that's where we're at.
yeah, I mean, like, this is like a toe in the water thing. And that's what I was going to say is, like, if this even remotely like feels like good in terms of like how it interacts with the data, then that's what I was going to say. Like, so for you guys that are like, oh, okay, well, if you're doing that, then, again, like, what was the point of Erin's thing? It's like, you guys don't get it. Like, if this works, the next step is Erin's thing. Like, like, the next step is a system that I can mod to actually make it, because again, like, yeah, it's cool that Claude can do that. Again, it's cool to know that that works, but Anthropic is not going to tomorrow then help me connect that to HubSpot. Anthropic is not tomorrow going to help me connect that to my other third-party service, right? Like, that's where it stops. So, it is. That's why I say same thing about HubSpot. Like, it's really cute, really cute features, and it's awesome, and it's super powerful, right? But if you were like Erin and you know what you're doing, then it's only the beginning.
Yeah. But something else that came to mind, because I'm like, how does it manage, like, especially with Claude, where the limits hit hard when they hit, and like the more you have in your knowledge base, the faster you hit the limits. And like, one thing I would love to test, I just had no idea how you test this, is like, if I have the same project folder in Google Drive, and I clear out the project knowledge base, like, and go tell it to look at Google Drive, the Google Drive folder, like, is there going to be a difference? Like, because there's definitely redundancy. I mean, one thing, like, when I asked for the recap of the day, it said it was looking at like recent Google Docs. So it's just like, that's a massive set of data, like, compared to the project, the project knowledge base itself. And that's where, like, maybe to answer one of your questions, Erin, like, it's been, some of the times that have been super interesting is when I start up a new project and I add this set of documents to it, and I ask him to review them to make sure he sees them. Sometimes it's like 3 or 4, like, you missed this one, and then you missed this one, and oh, like, why didn't you highlight this one? It's like, oh yeah. So the way that it, there's just enough inconsistency there, I think, to I just want to understand it more. I don't know if we will. Maybe it's like, in the back of my mind, I'm saying, just like, calm down, just like, I'm not going to know enough about the answers it gives me anyway. So just, if it's doing it and it's easy, like, just take it.
Right.
Do I need to go to the 5th layer of context to understand the answers from my own documents?
Right.
Probably not. But what if it's missing out an important detail?
That was the entire, like, drive behind me doing all this.
Which is why I'm a digital hoarder, obviously.
For sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I could see. It's just like when I think about those things, I just keep thinking about the fact that, like, yeah, but 3 months from now, it's not going to matter. Right? Like, every time I think about some type of programmatic limitation, the very next thought in my head is like, yeah, and 6 months from now, it's not going to matter.
For sure.
Like, that won't be a thing. That won't even exist. Right? So, like, 4.1, like, so outside of like Claude stuff, I know we're at the hour, but like outside of Claude stuff, like that to me was, I don't know, I wouldn't call it retaliation, but it's like everybody is trying to steal everybody else's thunder right now. Good luck, Google. And what was Meta?
And
so
poor Google, they just released, what did Firebase last week? Like,
yeah,
Firebase is dope. And like, we're already like, oh, poor Google, they're behind.
it's dope, but it's like, yeah, it's like Lovable's cooler, right? Like,
Oh, for sure, for sure.
it's free though, so like for a free version of Lovable,
right? What you
yeah.
want for free, you know?
Yeah, no, for free, it is seriously like it is. It's good.
Isn't it
But
like, is there any kind of handshake you think, like, in order to sync like Google Workspace to Claude? Like, is there any kind of like support for each other?
how do you
Like,
mean?
just in the
I mean,
way that their products work and like feeding off of each other's, I don't know, resources that
well,
support.
I mean, they're partnered, right? Like, Anthropic is partly funded by Google, right?
Oh.
Likewise, also partly funded by Anthropic, so, or by Amazon. So if you thought that Rufus was like was a Amazon creation out of thin air, no. If you thought that, you know, Gemma got better out of the blue, no. Look, I'm not trying to disparage or say anything bad about the folks at DeepMind. That stuff that's totally different ball game. What they're now doing with Gemini is what I wish they had been doing like last year when they said that it could do that and they lied. But at least it's getting there. That's the only reason that I disparage Google, is because you guys are supposed to be the best. You were the first, and you're not last. But I mean, come on, like, for how big you guys are, come on.
For real. If you're Google and you're not first, you're last.
Yeah, basically that's what I'm getting at, right? Like, you're basically the only reason that I cannot say anything horrible about Google is because of Apple. Like, that's the only saving grace, right? Apple seriously just shit the bed like I've never seen in my life. Like, how that company stock is not tanking is beyond me. Tim Cook has no lifeline. I'm not going to go into it. It's not worth it, really. It's beating a dead horse. But yeah, if you guys didn't see it, 4.1 dropped yesterday, or was the day before. It's happening so fast now. I think it's yesterday, right? And it just about flew past. Windrunner had it right away. They were part of the demo with OpenAI. And what's significant about it? So this is why I was like, if you guys go back and watch it, I'm kind of sorry about how much I flew off the rails, but this is why I was so pissed about the DeepSeek thing, is because when it happened, it was, and people were flipping their lid over not understanding that a company distilled what was considered, you know, at the time, like on the free level was the top of the line model, into a nearly better version of a higher end of that model, right? Awesome, because basically what they did was clone that 4.0 base, and they learned how to train it better and give it some reasoning, and all of a sudden it's like right up there with, you know, 0.1, right? That's not the same thing as like creating, you know, a slightly newer model that just like dwarfs what the prior model was doing, right? And so where DeepSeek like barely beat the highest end, or like, I don't know, can't even say highest end, like 0.1 mini basically is like what it kind of crept on. 4.1 by comparison to 4.0, it's ridiculous to try to compare them. What's the most impactful part of it is 4.1 mini. Like, 4.1 is cool and it is more powerful than 4.0, but 4.1 mini is ridiculous because it is as good as 4.0. It's the first time. Like, it's the first time that we have a mini model that is like, actually, I think it is slightly better than 4.0 is. I'm not entirely, I gotta go back and look at the stats, but it's it's ridiculous either way. And it's the beginning of what's going to be a new era. My friend Sanj was talking to me about this, that, you know, and I I kind of had a feeling about it, and which is why I started talking to him about it in the first place, because there was I wish I could remember the gentleman's name, but was on stage talking about it probably earlier last year, about how people were ignoring labs that were spending only $3 million total in like training and costs and everything, but they were doing small language models, and they were having huge gains, like massive gains per iteration, like that just made the large language model game look like nothing, right? But just nobody's been paying attention. And now all of a sudden this 4.1 mini model comes along, and it is, man, like the performance difference is ridiculous. And if you look at what this means for costs, the CFO just did a talk. I wish I could remember exactly where, but and she was talking about how the cost curve has changed, and from 4.0 to 4.1 mini, the cost curve has gone down 99%.
That's so crazy.
Right. So like it's beyond me. Like it's beyond me. Right. So like I don't know. So, you know, we've been telling you guys about how like zero cost development is a thing that exists, and it's spreading like wildfire. I just talked to another person today who was telling me how they are on the verge of completing, you know, again, light kit software that they weren't even thinking of doing. It was someone that I was telling them about Replit a couple weeks ago, and they finally got around to it, and they're obsessed with it. And they're like, I'm $35 in and I'm almost done. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. It took me about $40 to finish the last thing that I was working on. And he was like, yeah, I don't know what this means, you know, for the rest of the industry. I'm like, well, you know, for junior developer and down, do better. Yeah, like come up with cooler stuff, right? If you were going to college to be a developer just because dad told you to, and that was your fallback. Yeah, look, I mean, if you're in college now, I'm sorry. Stop. Yeah, seriously. Like some people might say that this is super ignorant. I can kind of understand where they are coming from, because I was just telling my wife the same thing the other day, that I feel that unless you already know, if you're going to college because you know you want to be a doctor, you know you want to be a lawyer, you know you want to do this, right? Yeah, you got to go to college for that, because you got to do the book thing, and that's their deal. They got hoops, you got to jump through them. If you don't know what you want to do, don't go to college. Please, dear God, don't. Like, I mean, the purpose of going, if you didn't know what you wanted to do, was to try to discover. But please don't go spend 40, 50, 60, 80 grand to go discover what it is you want to do, right? You can do that with these models, right? And I'm not saying like be antisocial, because that's also part of college, is to, you know, become social and understand what it's like to interact with other human beings. But again, the costs, and I'm seeing it already, where colleges are starting to sort of make this transition into trade schools and starting to carry like trade school programs now, like, because oh man, all of a sudden them psych degrees, like not so much.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's been the best psych I've ever had.
It's crazy when you have something objective to give you.
So what is the opposite of a race to the bottom? Because that's what this feels like. Like, even I'm realizing today, like I was so randomly, like, because I've got way too many things recording things right now. Apps. Pretty sure I'm probably complaining about my headset that doesn't work, and it's probably one of these apps, like fucking around with the headset and its ability to connect. But like I randomly, like on the Google Meets, I was given the option to like, oh, you can transcribe with Gemini now, and it'll add a doc to the meeting. And I was like, whatever, let's try it. See, I have no idea what I'm going to do with that. And then end of day, like connects to Claude, and Claude's okay. Like, man, so much value is hiding like in plain sight, you know, for a lot of people. So hopefully we can help you, you know, not be afraid to click some buttons. try some new things. I don't know how else to slice it at this point. Like,
Right.
if you can't find value from this stuff, like you're
Not looking
actively
hard.
trying.
Right. You're
not-
looking at
you
the
must be, right?
Right.
So that's why we're here. I'm gonna keep showing up. Maybe the next request is to get LinkedIn, synced into Claude, and then we can really involve Claude in the conversation. Man,
For real.
I mean, yeah, like we definitely need to do that, right? Like we need to get I think that is the project. I think for this show is to like build a fourth co-host, right? That like is comprised of the show and like is comprised of our social and stuff like that.
I'm gonna be testing.
I'm opting out of that. You don't want to.
I'm gonna be
No, I just mean like knows of our profiles and posts and things. Yeah.
all right. I'm gonna be testing George's clone out as somewhat of a co-host on Friday afternoon.
Oh, cool.
As I attempt to go through all 280 updates. That's my birthday present.
Is it really 280? Because I like.
Yeah, the Spring Spotlight page has 281 updates on it. I didn't want to ask George to give me all that time. Luckily, I have his clone, which we got an email saying it was updated with all those updates.
Well, I know Triple H is gonna be there tomorrow. I'm just saying.
So yeah, we could get him involved too. Like,
no, I want to see the audio. I'm really interested in having that, right? Having that set up. But I'm and you know what? Let me know, because I don't know what your setup is like or whatever, but that's what I was thinking the other day. It's like, yeah, I could easily set that up and just have it on my laptop or something, right? And then don't have to worry about the crossover audio or anything.
There you go. All right. More experimentation on the way.
Sure.
Thanks so much for sharing your genius with us.
Oh my gosh,
tonight, Erin.
Loved this. Thank you so much for having me.
Yep. And we'll see everybody next time. Have a great night.
Have a good one, guys.